Despite Donald Trump blinking on a bunch of the big disastrous tariffs on like the whole world, including like Madagascar and the island with the penguins, he announced today he's not just maintaining but increasing his tariffs on China, which is one of our largest trading partners. And among the Americans who will almost immediately feel the pain are farmers, because China buys a lot of their product and will slap tariffs on in response. Alex Wagner has been doing amazing reporting on the impact of Trump's policies on the ground. Went to North Carolina to talk to farmers about Trump's tariffs and what it means for their future and their livelihood.
Agriculture, there's about 85% of what happens on my farm that is completely out of my control.
Yeah.
So I have to do the very best I can at managing that 15% of inputs and cost and labor and marketing and signing the best contract and doing the best job that I can, and leave the other 85% up to the good Lord. And that's all we can do, whether it's weather or disease or a hailstorm or a pandemic or administration. And we just weather the storm.
It's kind of a wait and see game. I mean, I think the main thing is not to overreact and get too nervous. I mean, stay the course. That's what's helped us, all of these generations of farmers staying the course and doing what we do best and being efficient, not spending money when we don't need to spend money,
right.
And just keeping our ears open and eyes open and being able to pivot when we can.
Here with me now is Alex Wagner, MSNBC senior political analyst and host of the Trumpland podcast. I loved those quotes because I think it's actually a profound insight, like a genuinely profound insight, and also like explains a lot of why a lot of folks are like,
yes,
we're just going to sort of see where it all goes.
I think, it was interesting being in Clayton, North Carolina yesterday as, Wall Street's melting down. The financial world is flipping out. Investors are calling Trump. People can't get through. It's a different reality in red state America. All the people that I talked to at that table had voted for Trump at least once, if not multiple times. And in part because of that, but I think largely because of the attitude you have to take when you are a farmer. You are more sanguine. You are more accepting of external chaos. But I kept saying, this isn't hurricanes. This isn't weather. This isn't an act of God. This is Donald Trump making very clear decisions that put you in financial peril. And it's not just that they sell their, goods to China. It's that they need farm equipment. They need lots of supplies that are manufactured in China. And they've already spent that money, Chris. The way it goes with a commodities trade is you've already put the money in the ground for the seed, the fertilizer, the equipment, the labor. They just got to hope come harvest time that they can sell it at a decent price and don't lose money. And Trump has thrown all of that up in the air, right? But what's so interesting, I think, is the empathy they feel with him insofar as the project of correcting a trade imbalance that they see has been decades in the making. The kinship they feel with him in his political project to break things and upend the status quo, and the fundamental and unspoken belief that if it all does go to hell in a handbag, as it did in 2018, Donald Trump will make sure they are made whole. So I'm speaking of the bailouts that were offered, the money, the assistance that was granted to farmers in the last Trump trade war with China in 2018. And I asked them about that and whether that was something they expected and what they thought of other people who might not be so keen on that idea. This is that conversation. The assistance that the president put in place after the last tariff increase basically erased the financial gains from that tariff increase, which I think left a lot of people scratching their heads like, well, why are we doing this to begin with? Do you feel the same way? I
feel like in the last trade war, we kind of went through the short-term pain, and I'm wondering where the gain was, maybe. We kind of came out of it in a little bit of turmoil.
I think some people have not forgotten that, and they're saying, well, you know what? The people that voted to put this president in office, this is your guy. And if this is your guy, you got to roll with the policies he enacts. And, why should the rest of the country that didn't vote for him be bailing out farmers?
That's right. And they're also, those same people oftentimes demand that farmers address climate change and farmers adapt different technologies. And we have responded in spades with soil health initiatives, cover crops, using less inputs to produce more on less land with less water and higher labor costs. But those same people that make those demands are not willing to pay the cost for the American products in the store. They will buy the cheaper imported products that have much lower, their daily wage rate are less than what we have to pay an hour for our H-2A workers that are coming in. And the disparity when you're having somebody tell you how to do what you do best for a living and then not be willing to pay for the demands that they're making is laughable. We're fighting with one hand tied behind our backs because we're having to meet the regulations that are imposed to produce the quality food and address all of these other social issues we may or may not be responsible for. But at the same time, we're not seeing a return in the marketplace because American products are too expensive. And that's the tragedy of the American farmer is we produce the best and we meet the demands and we step up to the plate. But the consumer, when they go to the store, they're looking for the best deal and the best value.
It's the system that they had take issue with is the broader landscape for American farming in a global economy. And it's, I think, because of this decades-long feeling of inequity, that they'll basically go along with whatever Trump is trying to do to correct that imbalance. And anybody who stands in the way of that or says farmers don't get their due doesn't understand how difficult it is to be a farmer in America.
I mean, what's so interesting about that quote, I really think that guy's a really well-spoken and interesting fellow, is that the fundamental reality here is that one person's cost is another person's income.
Yes.
Always.
Yep.
This is Econ 101, and it's lost in so much of the debate here. So when he says...
Cost of labor.
When people talk about costs going up, it's like when you talk about like, oh, housing costs are high, it's like, that's bad. But if you say home values are rising, it's like, well, that's good. And that depends on whether you want to get into a housing market or you own a house. If you say the cost of the corn we're growing is going up, well, that's good if you're a farmer.
Right.
But it's not good if you're the consumer. Right?
And they talked a lot about wage requirements and labor costs. And I think the issue they take is, unlike housing, it's not two side-by-side apartments, one built by, it's not an apartment building that's been imported from China that's standing next to an apartment building in New York City. They are competing in the global marketplace in a way that other commodities aren't.
Totally. But what's so crazy about this whole thing is we just had this whole election where everyone's consensus view, and I was there, I didn't lose my mind, was like prices are too high.
And I asked
and now we've come out of it, and it's like, Americans, we got to get over this obsession with cheap stuff. It's like, we just did this. I was there every goddamn night.
And they are farmers who are also consumers themselves.
Yes.
They are going to be affected both in their livelihood and just as parents and people trying to put food on the table. And yet, Chris, I am telling you, Donald Trump has not lost them.
No, of course not. And again, I don't look. The way all this stuff works is, you could go find a rich Democrat who a Democrat's going to raise taxes on, and they're not going to leave the Democratic Party. Right?
Yes.
They believe in things other than that.
Yes.
But this thing about the cost is really driving me insane, because all of a sudden it's like we're all having this good faith conversation about like maybe the world of like cheap foreign imports isn't the best thing for America. It's like, well, yeah, maybe, but like what were we just doing last year when all we talked about is how everything is expensive? Suddenly, like, the center of gravity of the conversation has shifted in a remarkable way. I'm very excited to listen to this episode of Trumpland.
It's a good one, I got to say.
Now, yeah, that was really great. Really, really.